G'day guys, my name is Wildkard, welcome back. Thank you for watching my stupid contents, I really do appreciate it. Especially the guys who pays their real money in a difficult time like this. By hitting the join button down below, I really do thank you guys very much. So, it's Tuesday, it's News Day. Let's take a look at what's been happening last week in the world of rugby. So obviously, Six Nations, round 5, lots of fallout following the games, we'll have a look at that. The Super Rugby is in huge trouble once again, especially the New Zealand side. There's more outbreaks going into the team, so we could be seeing more games being cancelled. And then also, lastly, we'll have a look at some news coming out of Australia, some referee discussions, and yeah, lots of drama this week. We'll have a look at it. First up, Rugby World Rankings. Sure. Everybody, this is obviously the most important ranking in the world in rugby, right? So the biggest news is actually hasn't yet happened, but the biggest news is that France is within reach to take over the second place New Zealand next week if they beat England. So that's actually the biggest news from the Rugby World Rankings. This France is approaching New Zealand, and if New Zealand drops down to third, I think that's the lowest rank ever since the introduction of the World Rugby Rankings. So yeah, a lot of New Zealand fans are going to be a little bit unhappy. And then obviously Ireland moved up above England after beating England at Twickenham, a pretty big win. And Scotland moves ahead of Wales after beating Italy, and Wales going down a spot after losing to France. So yeah, that's kind of the move this week. And then the biggest move, Switzerland went up 4 spots. What? But yeah, anyway, so there was actually some rugby played on the back end. We'll have a look at that as well for the Rugby World Cup qualifiers. 2 teams was qualified on the weekend, and we should have a look at that in a minute. So first up, Six Nations, big results on the weekend. Wales, Jonathan Davies, if he caught that ball, Wales probably could have beaten France. Would have been a huge upset, but falling short to the French superb defense. England, the controversy kept piling up for England. The red card, 90 seconds into the first half, England left England to play with 1 player missing for the entire duration of the game. England was able to claw the game, level 15 points to 15 with 65 minutes or so to go before Ireland and the English reserves letting themselves down, and the Irish finally overpowered England for a bonus point win. The bonus point win is quite important here because now Ireland can still win the Six Nations if France don't beat England on the weekend. So there's the bonus point comes into play and is quite important. France did not get a bonus point over Wales, so this could be a huge result for Ireland over the weekend. And then we have obviously the post-match talks about some of the decisions that the referee made. So this is how stupid Eddie Jones sometimes is. Sometimes I do get the feeling that Eddie Jones might not really understand how the forward pack work. So he basically, obviously talked about England obviously had a lot of scrum dominance in this game, despite having one of the forwards in the bin. The English forwards, the superbly well, were able to force, I think 6 scrum penalties against the Irish. And then like 3 short arm penalties, and Ty Furlong was penalized many times as a result. So there were some talks about Ty Furlong should have been yellow carded. I mean, that doesn't really make sense. If the scrum is struggling, it's not because he's cynically collapsing the scrum. If the scrum's struggling, you yellow card the tight head prop, only makes the scrum worse, right? And that just, I don't think that makes much sense. But it is an issue there. But what Eddie Jones was arguing was that the referee did not let the England play advantage following the scrum. So if you look at, this is something that I thought was just, really, yeah. Didn't allow the scrum. He said Eddie Jones says he's be disappointed. The referee didn't allow them to scrum fully, and essentially saying that we weren't allowed to play advantage away from the scrum. This is actually like one of the stupidest statements I have ever heard, because the whole reason of the English scrum, the penalty was given, is because the ball didn't come out of the scrum. And it was unplayable. And that's why the referee gave a penalty. If you want gave a penalty, and the reason the ball didn't come out of the scrum, because your forward pack wanted to milk the penalty by keeping the ball in the scrum. So your players literally decided to not get the ball out to get the penalty kick instead of playing the advantage. It's a decision that's made by your players, and that is a decision made by your scrum coach. And by the way, in my opinion, it's the right decision, because you don't want, you just want to take the penalty to minimize your effort and try to get the ball further down the field before spending that energy. Like, it's just pretty like, it's actually pretty smart play. The fact that Eddie Jones came out and criticized that shows that he doesn't really understand what's going on the field. It's not because the referee didn't allow the advantage being played. It's because your own players are told to not get the ball out to get the scrum penalty. Okay, that's like how it worked. So I was surprised to hear this from Eddie Jones. As you know, as a coach of 62 years of age, I'm surprised that I didn't really understand how scrummaging is working nowadays. In fact, how his own scrummaging is taught, at least by, is trying to do. It's bizarre to hear this comment from Eddie Jones. But yeah, the next thing that we're going to look at is obviously Ireland suffered 2 big injuries. James Ryan and Ryan and Baird both injured. As a result, Andy Farrell has to call up 2 players, Ross Maloney and Joe McCarthy, for the final game against Scotland. And then for Wales, there's big news coming out of Wales. Alun Wyn Jones was called back into the squad last week, and he wasn't selected to play against France, but he might be. There's some chatter about him potentially playing the Italy game, making his 105th test cap, historic highest amount of test cap ever, 150. He's already passed like Richie McCaw's record at 149 at the moment. I think Richie McCaw's record is 148. So he's already like the most capped player, but this will be a historic 1.5 century. Yeah, so this will be huge, but we'll have to wait. And then Wales actually announced they're gonna announce the team 2 days early. So can't wait to see that. So the referee, again, there's a lot of talks about potentially having a 20-minute red card reintroduced to international rugby. 20-minute red card is currently played in Super Rugby and also played in the Rugby Championship. Something that one of the referees in New Zealand, Ben O'Keefe, argues for for this case. And obviously the decision to give the red card is correct. High contact to the head, high level of danger, red card. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That is the standard of refereeing in the World Rugby today, and that is absolutely the correct decision to protect the welfare of the players. But as a result, now we're literally seeing like 2 red cards every weekend, right? Like, it's just getting ridiculous, the amount of red cards. As prior to this new interpretation of the law, red cards are given like once every 5 years. Now it's once every every 5 hours, right? Like 2 games back to back, there's one red card each game, right? It's like ridiculous. So as a result, the law is becoming outdated. So there should be, a strong argument for the red card to be reduced to 20 minutes, because it really does ruin the spectacle of the game, and it really is something that that just makes the game, really ruins the viewing experience for the fans, to be really frank. And then also there is some talk that Rassie Erasmus, his contract is up after the 2023 World Cup. He was initially signed to the Springboks to win the World Cup at 2023. So the fact that he's able to do it 4 years early just shows the testament to the brilliance of the man. But as a result, he could potentially take over England. Eddie Jones is resigning after the 2023 World Cup. So South Africa is doing everything they can to try to keep Rassie Erasmus under the contract. So basically, the South Africa president, Mark Alexander, says that Erasmus will remain in charge till after the Rugby World Cup in France. But how long after? I mean, could be like 6 months, could be 1 year. It doesn't mean that he's not. He could still be available for England, because because England is is Eddie Jones finishes after the Rugby World Cup, and it's still lines up. Unless he signed like another 4 years, he's still available technically for England. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It would be like he's literally the national hero at the moment in South Africa. He won the Coach of the Year in 2021 for winning the Lions Tour, and his outstanding sacrifices that he made to win the Lions Tour. Let's just put it that way. And then obviously there were some talks about the ref watch. Probably won't go at it any more further. Some of this explanation, I thought this has to be incorrect, because like you see this point here, there's one point where Maro Itoje reached into the ruck, was in the ruck, reached his hand out and disrupted the halfback from putting the ball out. And there's an explanation here that says that was illegal, despite the fact that a referee penalized that and wanted to give a yellow card. That's definitely not illegal. You cannot pull someone into the ruck, even if they did lift the ball up. You're in the ruck, you're technically out of play. So I don't know how this explanation was correct, saying that it was legal, since but yeah, he was on his feet, but he was in the ruck. So this explanation here doesn't really make any sense here. Anyway, I won't go into that anymore. It's just a bit of a referee talk. So Wales also suffered some big horrendous injuries. Tomo Williams obviously suffered a knock. Everybody saw the footage. He's out. And also there was some talk about Thomas Francis shouldn't be playing on the weekend, which he did play. He suffered a concussion the week before. Not the week before, I think 2 weeks before now. And he was basically told by Twitter doctors that he was in grave danger if he was, a grave mistake if he played on the weekend, despite the team doctors, the protocol showed that he was available to play. So I thought, people like this should really stay out of it. You don't have access to the player behind the scenes. You're just looking at video footage of the player on the field, how he kind of like reacted after he got hit, and you're claiming that this player isn't fit to play just based on video footage that was showed during television broadcast. That is extremely unprofessional, to say the least. So these people should really just keep their mouths shut. Anyway, bigger news. Let's move some news to the Southern Hemisphere now. Michael Cheika, former Wallabies coach, is appointed as Argentina coach after Mario Ledesma resigned, I think 2 weeks ago now. And there was some talks that Felipe Contepomi was supposed to take over. So Cheika currently takes over the Pumas till the 2023 World Cup. And then Contepomi is supposed to be his assistant coach. And there's talks that Contepomi will be taking over after the 2023 World Cup. So very excited for Michael. Very excited for the Czechs. He is one of the really great. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, yada, yada, yada. But I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a great rugby mind. He had a lot to do with Argentina beating the All Blacks 2 years ago. And I have no doubt he's going to pull out some tricks up his sleeves to put Argentina potentially a wing over the Wallabies this year. So very excited, very good news for the Argentinian team. Obviously, some blunder came out of the All Blacks last week. The All Blacks media account, tweeted out these things supporting International Women's Week, and yet their account did not feature a single female. So they issued an apology initially on one of their smaller sub accounts with fewer followers, and it was immediately slammed by the Twitter army, and then they have to issue a formal apology in their main account. And it was pretty embarrassing how you could overlook such a, it's just what it is. Anyway, and then we have the World Rugby. As I mentioned, 2 teams qualified for the Rugby World Cup over the weekend. First up is Georgia. Georgia qualified as a result of Russia and Belarus being banned for international rugby games, so they were not able to attend their qualifying matches as a result of abandonment. Georgia gets automatically qualified for the Rugby World Cup, for the Rugby World Cup 2023. So good news for Georgia. And also Spain has beaten Portugal to qualify for the Rugby World Cup, first time in 24 years. So this was also a big news with Spain. They haven't played since I don't remember ever seeing playing Spain in the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, they must be in the pool stages in the 90s. But I honestly could not tell you that Spain ever seen Spain in the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, they're gonna get a good show for 2023, which is really good. So here's the thing. More news about Australian rugby. So if you ever wondered why Australian referees sucks, why Nick Barry overlooks a lot of the small errors on the field, it's because of this. This is exactly the reason why Australian referees ref the way they do. And it's like I've been telling everyone, it's not the referee's fault. It's the way that the referee are under the pump after the game unprofessionally by members of Australian rugby. And here's a typical example as to why, right? So on the game on the weekend, the Reds versus Fiji and Endura, there was one really bizarre moment where 3 yellow cards was given in about 30 seconds due to dangerous play. And all of the red cards were correct. They were dangerous play, 2 shoulder charges, 1 spear tackle, definitely yellow cards. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And Brad Thorne, and this is, according to the world standards, this is the way it should be. Brad Thorne came out and criticized this, saying that, the game needs to play with more, basically saying, if you wanted to, you can find flaw in every single thing. And then some common sense needs to be put into the game to stop so much stoppage and ruining the game for the spectators. This is why you see referees like Nick Barry overlooking games in the Lions Tour, because if they do their job correctly, by the books, because that's just how it is. Your players aren't disciplined enough on the field, and not because the referee's fault. They get slammed in media the next day by high-profile coaches for looking too much into things. This is why. I've been telling everybody this is the case. I've been telling everyone it's not Nick Barry's fault. This is the reason. Right here, Brad Thorne slamming the referee for doing their job correctly. Because he came from an era where these things are outdated. Essentially, his views are. So more COVID outbreak happened in the New Zealand team. So this saying that Harlan Desai is tested positive and training Tuesday, which is kind of like yesterday, was cancelled. And this means that the game against Moana Pacifica again might be cancelled. So this is going to be the week 5 of Super Rugby, and Moana Pacifica only played 1 game so far. And if this game gets cancelled, it means that they're going to have more games in the future that has to be played in extra games during the week. So yeah, this is looking really, really poor. So Moana Pacifica so far already has 3 games cancelled, and only 2 games has been rescheduled so far. So if the game doesn't go ahead this weekend against the Highlanders, they'll have another 2 games they have to be rescheduled, right? So the first 2 games that they missed out against the Blues and the I think the Chiefs is going to be rescheduled for next Tuesday and the week after Tuesday. So they're going to be playing 2 back-to-back Tuesday games on top of the regularly scheduled Saturday or weekend games to make up for those 2 lost games. So it's going to be really taxing for the players. And if the game that's been cancelled for the Chiefs game this weekend, Chiefs game, for the Highlanders game this weekend, they're going to be looking at another 2 weeks of Tuesday games in the future. So this is really, really brutal for the Moana Pacifica team. I just literally have to play, 4 games in like 8 days, essentially, like 10 days or something. Like ridiculous schedule. But yeah, that's just the way. 4 games in 10 days. That's really, really tough for any team to do. But that's the rescheduling. That's the way it is. New Zealand Rugby made a huge mistake, in my opinion. Like I mentioned, putting all the teams in one bubble, exposing everyone to the same risk, and basically having every team is now getting outbreaks throughout. So Hurricanes and Chiefs wants the game to be rescheduled. So I think the game's been pushed back 1 day because of an outbreak from Hurricanes from last week. They wanted a bit more time to put their teams together. So they wanted to put the Hurricanes wasn't able to return to training till Thursday. so they wanted the game to be pushed back by another day, not a week, another day. So the Blues has a lot of injuries as a result of the first few rounds. Some updates: Harry Plummer is out of the season due to a shoulder injury, and Raja Tuivasa-Sheck, he's silent for several weeks due to a what is it? They didn't say exactly what it is, but he's also had a bit of injury. So Beauden Barrett was supposed to play last weekend, but he was pulled out last minute. Maybe he's got COVID. There's no updates on that. Hopefully it's just COVID and he's going to be okay in a week. Hopefully he's not like injured again or having concussion symptoms, but something that he's talked about. But yeah, that's the Blues are having some big issues with the injuries. So obviously another big upset on the weekend was the Chiefs beating the Crusaders for the first time in like 6 years or something. There's been a lot of talks about a lot of the Crusaders players are the All Blacks players. They were under the pump in the second half by the Chiefs, and yeah, really was beaten. Really was truly beaten by the Chiefs in the second half to lose the game. And a lot of the players are the All Black players, and essentially there's some talk about the All Blacks players not performing, and there's also talks about the quality of the games in the Super Rugby New Zealand side, not up to the level that it was played in previous years. As we mentioned, that the standard has been poor here. There's lack of ball retention, control, poor tackling, poor tactical and kicking options, and have been and as a result, most matches ended up in poor for the viewers. So yeah, there's a lot of concern for the New Zealand rugby. That's just the way it is. And finally, we've already talked about this. The Honduras, came out firing 3 tries against the Reds in less than 5 minutes to almost snatch an upset over the Reds. All I can say, this was a great game for the Honduras. Showed a lot of heart. The Reds were disappointing, to say the least. It was really embarrassing to see they're completely thinking that they've won the game with about 15 minutes left, taking off their star players, letting like Hunter Paisami taking goal kicks, and he like clearly hasn't kicked a goal ever, just completely missed the mark. It was really embarrassing to say the way they kind of treated the game like it's already been won with 15 minutes left. And sure enough, Fijian clawed themselves out of the ditch and came back 28 points to 28 with 3 tries in less than 5 minutes. So there you go. That's the news for the week, guys. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. I do really appreciate you being here. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later this week for the previews. Cheers.